In my first year as a chemistry professor, I got some student reviews that really kicked me hard because they poked at a part of myself I didn't like. And when someone pokes at something you don't like about yourself, the only thing you want to do is just change it. And in today's episode, I'm going to share the process that actually makes meaningful change, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you.
1, 2, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab. This is season 2, where we are exploring how to thrive in uncertainty by recalibrating to our most authentic selves. I'm Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a musician, a songwriter, and also a chemistry professor. You see, I use science and music to understand my world within and the world around me. Each week, I share a new story and I break it down using the scientific method. In this podcast, we use my calibrate, experiment, optimize framework. And this month, we're focusing on the calibration phase. Now, episode 1 of this season, we focused on self-forgiveness. Then, once we forgave ourselves and dropped the shame and guilt, we moved into episode 2, which was about self-acceptance, being very honest about what's there. And in today's episode, we're going to embrace the parts of ourselves we don't like. That sounds counterintuitive. Normally, we want to change them. And I'm telling you that in this episode, we're going to talk about the process that actually allows you to make meaningful changes while being your most authentic self. Let's dive in. When I started at Avila University, I came in with a lot of passion. I love chemistry. It's my favorite topic, and I know a lot about it. And I love connecting ideas from across subjects to help students really understand the importance of what they're learning. This is a beautiful thing, and it's a skill that I'm proud of. And at the very same time, with that squirrels on fire in my head when I'm teaching, that also means that I tend to be a little disorganized. And that first year my first semester, I taught a new course I hadn't taught before, and it was really an intro level chemistry course. And that's where I got the student reviews. One student wrote, "Be more organized, stay on task." Another one said, "Less distractions." I felt really bad because I had no intentions of making this difficult for the students. And when I got an evaluation that said that, it really punched me in the gut because I know that I'm disorganized. I know that I get distracted. I know that I bring up topics and I relate things to different topics that might not be on the test, but I think they're so cool. In a way, my passion for chemistry also can get in the way. So when I got that student evaluation, of course, my first thought, wasn't that, oh, I just need to make a slight tweak. My first thought was, I'm a terrible professor. There are so many other people in the world that would do way better at this than I am. I am failing. I suck at this. You get the picture. Have you ever punished yourself like that? It's really human to do that. I also got, at my year-end review, further punished, where there was no discussion about things that I did well. At the end of my review, I actually asked the leadership, did I do anything that was good that first year? And they really focused on the negative student evaluations. So that first year really, really hit me hard. And it was a lot for me to come back from because many of you know on this podcast, I've shared in previous episodes, that first year was also difficult because I had lost someone to suicide. It was a bad first year, not only my personal life, but then moving to a new city, new state, starting a new job, teaching new classes, getting bad reviews, feeling like a complete failure. That was really not fun at all. And so I realized, though, punishing myself, and we know this logically. I know if you're listening, you know that punishing yourself never helps. However, we do it. We're human, okay? And so once you get done doing that, then hopefully you're listening to this episode so we can move into the next stage. I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 1 of this season about self-forgiveness, and then listen to episode 2, self-acceptance. And today we're talking about how to embrace that part that we don't like. So the first thing I had to do was remind myself that I forgive myself for having squirrels on fire in my brain. And that's just how my brain is. And once I reminded myself that I have that self-forgiveness, I don't need to feel shame and guilt. I can move on to accepting that that's part of me. And I did. I really sat with that and thought, this student has a very good point. I do struggle with being organized sometimes. And so when you really can accept it, now you can move on to this step. Is there really anything wrong with me? No, there isn't. However, I need to calibrate these squirrels on fire. I need to calibrate this part of myself I don't like. I need to embrace that it is a part of me. And the way that helped me the most to embrace this was to get creative about how I perceived myself as being disorganized. In a way, that disorganization is what makes me a very engaging teacher. In some ways, my disorganization allows me to answer questions that are all over the place. I've seen instructors struggle with questions from students because it feels like a surprise question they weren't expecting on this topic. And those are the questions I love. I love helping students connect the dots when they're really far off in left field. I can do that because my brain is disorganized. I can connect things that would be seemingly very, very different, and in a way that allows me to build a bridge to help students learn. So when I really think about that thing I don't like, which is I'm disorganized, in order for me to embrace it, I need to think of ways in which it actually helps me. My ability to jump from topic to topic and be agile with my teaching and changing things on the fly when I'm realizing students aren't understanding something makes me a really powerful teacher. And at the same time, my disorganization in some ways is a weakness and can cause some chaos in the classroom. When I got to that point when I could actually embrace the fact that I'm disorganized, that's when I was allowing myself to find a process in which I could be fully my disorganized self while still serving in the best way possible. So here's how it looked for my situation. What I realized was that I needed more structured slides and more structured assignments. That way, if I got off topic in class, I could explain to the students, please review these slides, and here is the assignment that goes with it. I appreciate the conversation. This was really creative, and it was something really important we needed to focus on. And also, we have an organized list of things we need to get done in this class. So still creating structure while also allowing my disorganization to take lead in class sometimes when it's needed, when students really need to pause and dive into something and understand it. I also added more recaps in the beginning and at the end of my lectures. So when I would show up, I would write out on the top left of my whiteboard, these are the topics we're talking about today. And at the end of class, I would always go back to the whiteboard and check off the things we talked about, circle the ones we didn't, tell them where they could find it on the slides, and do a quick review the next lecture. So by doing kind of an end cap on my lecture, in the beginning, I told them what we were hoping to get through, and at the end, I told them what we did get through. It gave my students a nice clear direction of where we were in the class. Now, if I had just focused on changing the thing I didn't like, I'm disorganized, I don't like it, I'm going to be organized, I could potentially be just putting out my own fire, the thing that makes me great at what I do. Do you notice how we're embracing the thing we don't like so we can make small changes. We can calibrate and make small changes rather than just throwing it out. And the reason this is important is because this actually makes you who you are. And for me, it made me a good teacher. So even though I got bad reviews about disorganization, here's a few others that I got. Instructor was always willing to help with any questions, lively, and brought energy to a subject that can be tedious. Very active with students, really cares about if we understand the subject. You see, if I was super organized and was very much so to the T of exactly what we were going to learn, I probably wouldn't be as lively. So I didn't want to put my fire out, and that's the most important thing. The thing you don't like about yourself, it could actually be something very intrinsic to you, and you might not like it because of the situation that you're in. In my case, it was my job. In a way, organization is kind of key to running a good classroom. And that's why I don't like that part of myself because it makes it harder in that area. But that doesn't mean my disorganization is bad and I need to get rid of it. The part that makes me disorganized, the squirrels on fire in my brain, that is my light. That is the unique thing about me. By embracing that, I could see and kind of back up a little bit and notice how I could enhance what I'm doing rather than just punishing myself and essentially putting my own fire out. So let's pause here. What is your equivalent to my squirrels on fire in my brain? Do you procrastinate? Do you not speak up in meetings? Do you overthink? Whatever that is, I want you can pause this episode and think about something you don't like about yourself. I'm going to walk us through a calibration moment, and I'll also invite you on a small life experiment this week. In my song, Beautiful Mistake, I talk about this beautiful masterpiece, this vision that we have. Here's the lyrics. I imagined a beautiful masterpiece, an infallible vision, just waiting to be released.
I imagine a beautiful masterpiece, an infallible vision, just waiting to be released.
I had a vision about what being a professor was going to be, and it wasn't until this vision of mine was really released that I saw the truth in it. It's not perfection. The real masterpiece is messy and very alive and constantly changing. The idea that it needs to be perfect, this infallible vision, is just a vision in our heads. And once you go through the steps of forgiving yourself, accepting it, and embracing it, that's when you can make a meaningful change that allows you still to be truly yourself. First, we're going to accept that the thing you don't like, it's here. Be very clear about it. No judgment here, except that it is there. It's something you don't like about yourself. Allow that just to sit. It doesn't need to go anywhere. You don't need to judge it. You don't need to be happy or sad about it. Whatever emotions come up, I get it. And also at the same time, remind yourself we're just saying, yes, I see that it's there. Now we can move on to embracing it. And here's how we're going to do it. I want you to get really creative of all the ways that this thing you don't like has actually been helpful. This might require you to ask a friend to sit down with you, bounce some ideas off of. You might need to take a little bit of time here, especially if it's something you don't like about yourself, that you just keep collecting data about how you don't like it. You're going to have to sit down and really find some data that suggests, for example, if you're a procrastinator, maybe by procrastinating, you didn't work on a project that led to nowhere. Something like that. Any small thing that shows it was helpful. Now I want you to think about the times in which it was helpful and what was going on and what situation did you use that in? Was it at work? Was it in a relationship? Was it at home? Was it with friends? Think about where it's been helpful and also think about the situations where it's not helpful. Once you get clear on what situations this trait of yours is helpful and not helpful, this allows you to know where to make the small tweaks we're going to make. In my case, the disorganization that I have is very helpful when I'm engaging with students in office hours or when they have questions in class or they aren't understanding something. I can quickly think of ways in which I can relate it to something. For example, I'd relate things to them. Here's a squirrel moment right now. Here, you're seeing it live. I remember in class, I'd have students in different sports, and so if a student asked a question, I knew enough about them where I could relate it to volleyball or baseball or football, whatever sport they were in, giving them something that they could connect to. That is all coming from my disorganization. However, I knew I needed to tweak my course structure. So that's why at the beginning of my lecture and at the end of it, I would have the end cap of a list of things we were going to go over. That allowed me to reinforce organization without killing off the times in which my disorganization was useful. What situations is your thing that you don't like not useful? Is there something small you can tweak where it doesn't have a negative impact on you? And are there ways maybe you can allow the times that it's been useful to take up more of your life? Maybe those are things you need to do more of. This could be a really helpful exercise for you to reflect on. You can bounce it off of a friend if you're a verbal processor, if you like to process things by writing them down. Maybe make 2 columns, ways in which it's helpful or situations in which this thing is helpful and situations where it's not. This small tweak you're going to make actually will allow you to embrace this part of yourself more. I want to bring up one more note before we end this episode. When we don't like something about ourselves, that feeling you get about the thing you don't like isn't necessarily about the thing you don't like. That sounds weird. It's true. It's actually your own resistance to it. Your own resistance to yourself. That's the feeling that's coming up. Me being disorganized isn't making me feel bad. When I got that bad student review, it had nothing to do with me being disorganized. That student review I got had everything to do with how I was resisting the idea that I'm disorganized. I wasn't able to fully accept it because I didn't want to accept it. The ugly feelings we feel about the things we don't like have actually nothing to do about that specific thing. And the faster that you get away from judging yourself with it, the faster you actually figure out a process to help yourself move through it. So, does it actually work to embrace the part of yourself you don't like? Well, my data said it 100% does. The next year, so this past year was my second year at Avila, and my student evaluations were very good. In fact, I had a student write that I was very organized, which kind of made me giggle because it's not true. But I had made just enough small tweaks. And here's the best part. My evaluations about my engagement with students and my ability to make complex problems easy for them to understand by relating it to topics that make sense to them skyrocketed. Instead of changing the thing I don't like and wanting it to go away, I doubled down on the parts of it that were helpful. My engagement, my ability to answer questions that jumped around, while also making small tweaks so that I had a student say she was very organized. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you shared it with a friend or family member. and invite them to join this Calibrate Experiment optimized journey where we're thriving in uncertainty this season. If you're interested, this Friday, we're doing a group call. It's free. You're all invited. If you stayed this long to this episode, this is your special gift. The link is below. Also, if something comes up for you from this episode or a previous one, please, I'd love if you shoot me an email. My email is kelsey@kelseymiles.com. I've really enjoyed hearing some of your stories, and it inspires me to keep going. And if you have ideas for new episodes, let me know, or join me on the call on Friday, and I'd love to talk with you. I want to thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Authenticity Lab, where we talked about embracing the parts of yourself you don't like. I'll be back next week with a new life story to inspire you to live boldly, lead a life of curiosity, so you can keep being your most amazing, authentic self.
Yeah, that house will always call you.